I remember that night when we finally got it fixed, and Tyler came down. I tell this story all the time. He sat down at the mix position. He played a reference track, which I don't know if you remember do you remember the first?
Bruno?
No, the first track he played in it was No Diggity. That was the first track he played in the studio. But he listens to it, and then he listened to a couple more things, and he hadn't said anything. And I was just kind of nervous because I was like, this is like the 2.5 months culminating to this moment.
Right.
And I remember he was looking and listening, and then he just said, "Oh no." And I freaked out because I was like, "What is it, Tyler?" I was like, "What's wrong?" And he goes, "I'm the weak link now." That's what he said. He's like, I hear things, because he played a couple tracks that he was working on. I think it was actually Nico and the Niners he was playing at the time, and he's just like, I hear things that I need to fix because I never heard it before in the rooms that I was in before. So it was like, at the moment, it was like very nerve-wracking, and I was like, what is wrong? But it actually ended up being a compliment. Like, he was like, yeah, this room is working out great.
That was a long night.
I
think you left at like 2:30 in the morning. You had to go somewhere the next day, because I remember we started at like 9, and I think we finished at 2, and I remember feeling bad for you.
No, it's all right. Yeah, I think I got home around like 6 in the morning or something like that. But I felt better getting home at 6 in the morning with good feedback, from Tyler. He was loving the room. So, yeah, and I mean, he spent a lot of time in that space, writing that new record. And I remember, I mean, it was something where we didn't really talk about the fact that we did the studio for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
a year
or so afterwards. And I remember when Trench had come out, and then they did that video for My Blood, and he was in the studio.
That was the first time it came out.
It was the first time it was seen, and I got really excited about it, and that it was actually in a music video.
I'm pretty sure you text me.
I was
did.
Like,
did you see this?
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, it's super fun. But yeah, so I got a couple more photos of the room. Like the back of the room here, we've got some diffusers on the back wall that are built into a bass trap. Bass traps in the corners, around the perimeter, and the soffits. Got those reflectors on the ceiling that allow for when this picture doesn't have the grand piano in there, but he ended up putting that in that space, and helps to redirect the sound. Got a couple pictures of the front here with Tyler at the synth station and at the mix position there, and yeah, just one of those rooms where it's just super comfortable walking in. Like, even you come down in the basement and you walk down that hallway, and then you turn, and it's like not something you'd expect to see in somebody's house.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I miss that studio a lot.
Yeah.
I'm assuming we're going to transition into the next one now, right?
Yeah, the next one. So after 2 albums, he did Trench and Scaled and Icy in that space, and he came to you and said he wanted to do something different.
Yeah, he had his kid. I think he had both of his daughters. Yeah, both. So he had 2 daughters at the time. And he's, ironically, we didn't care that he could hear somebody walking up above, but when he hears his daughter run down the hallway, he's like, I'm just having a hard time focusing. So he wanted a separate space to be able to work. That, and then the basement studio, there was no windows down there. He's like, he loves the outdoors, so he's like, I really want something with more visibility. And I'm like, okay, cool. We can find a space with some windows, which is ironic, because then we went to a room with no windows to having then 17.
Yeah.
And, I'll never forget, we had done a walkthrough through the house before he had actually bought it to see if it was a viable space. And you just walk in and you just take a deep breath, realizing it's like, all right, we got a challenge.
Yeah.
And, we'll go back into this a little bit more, but I'll never forget, like, even when the room is done, it is still more lively than, the basement studio.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can tell you that he feels like it's changing, the kind of songs that he's writing, because it's more lively. Yeah. And I had to explain to him, I was like, don't forget, like, Heathens was tracked in hotel rooms and tour buses, and others, you've done more in worse environments. So I remember I showed him Under the Bridge from Red Hot Chili Peppers. Mm-hmm. I've got the stems from that, and you're just listening, you can hear people walking around in the room, and the Anthony Kiedis never took his breaths out. Yeah. You can hear his chains that he's wearing. And then another one that is just amazing to listen to is Superstitions from Stevie Wonder. Mm-hmm. I mean, the horn section is literally talking the entire recording. You can literally, how's your day? Blah, blah, blah. You could just hear him laughing. And it was like, all right, count in. And then they start ripping. And I'm like explaining to him, I'm like, you've worked in perfect. You've had an acoustically perfect room, and everything has been like a vocal booth ready, like sound. This space is inspiring you, and as an artist, that's something you should focus on. But it took a minute to just tell him, like, you're going to have live sound in this room that you're not used to, but you also don't need to like focus on that being a bad thing. Right. And I was like, in the scope of an overall mix, these little nuances are not going to be the thing that people are focusing on. No. But this room now that he's working in, which he's finding a ton of inspiration in, is also changing the kind of songs that he's writing because it's a little bit more lively.